Tonight, tens of thousands of education workers prepare to walk off the job on Friday after its latest offer is rejected by the province.
This is a picket. They will be out in front on strike.
We will not accept a strike this Friday or any day.
The Ford government's looming legislation that would make it illegal for the workers to strike, leading to a raucous scene in Queen's Park today that resulted in several MPPs being tossed out. Plus,
so there's anger that's building and bubbling.
Some teachers at a Toronto high school are refusing to work, citing unsafe conditions as tensions with students reach a boiling point. And
we want it to be patient and tolerant. We're not patient and tolerant anymore.
As pandemic delays continue to plague hospitals across the province, we hear from one family that has been waiting for years for their son to get the surgery he needs. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Education workers, 55,000 of them are set on hitting the picket lines Friday, shutting down some schools if a deal is not reached between QP and the province by then. Now, this despite looming legislation from the Ford government that would make it illegal for the workers to go on strike. Dale Manukduk joins us live at Queen's Park. And Dale, where do things stand between the two sides right now?
Kelda, time is ticking and still no deal has been reached. QP did table a new offer with substantial movement, they say, but we have learned that that deal has been rejected by the government, the details of which are scarce because QP says they cannot comment due to a confidentiality agreement with the mediator. So where does that leave us? QP says they will strike on Friday in the face of government legislation imposing a contract on workers and taking away their rights to strike. Now, earlier today here at Queen's Park, tensions over that bill causing a ruckus scene.
Member for Ottawa Centre, come forward.
NDP MPPs disrupted question period today, resulting in 16 of them getting the boot from the chamber, including interim leader Peter Tabuns.
Speaker, when will the Premier and his ministers stop lying about the damage they're doing to the education system? He was asked but refused to withdraw the comment. Then, like dominoes, fellow MPPs were escorted out one by one.
We decided we have to step it up, that we have to make it as clear as possible that what this government is doing is destructive, that we reject it. It is a damaging step for the education system.
All this as the two sides have been at a hotel where bargaining was happening, but the government wants the union to take their biggest chip off the table before moving forward with any substantive talks.
We asked the union to bring forth a proposal that withdraws a strike on Friday. We gave them multiple opportunities to do so. And yesterday night at 10 p.m., hearing from the mediator and through the media,
for Davenport,
we're going to proceed with a strike that no one wants and no one should accept.
Some parents admit finding arrangements for their children will be challenging, but say they are standing with the union.
Support staff make up part of our school community. They are an integral member of our team. Our students count on them. Teachers count on them.
I'm 100% in favor of the union. I feel like they're undervalued as part of our education system, and the government needs to give them what they need.
If it's a one-day single strike, it should be okay. But longer than that, I think they've suffered, the kids have suffered enough.
Today, QP indicating that workers are prepared to be in it for the long haul.
Without anything changing, we are on strike until further notice starting Friday unless a deal is reached.
Now, Kelda, if it goes on for a while, it could get pricey. Bill 28, including fines of $500,000 per day for the union and $4,000 for individuals. The government says they will enforce it. Now, that bill does take away the right to strike and also uses the notwithstanding clause to remove collective bargaining rights. We know that today, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke with Premier Doug Ford, calling the move inappropriate, saying that the clause should only be used in the most extraordinary of circumstances. But Premier Ford holding firm, stressing the need to keep kids in class. And lastly, Kelda, the Toronto District School Board saying that all schools will be closed for in-person learning for the duration of the strike.
All right, thanks so much for that, Dale. That's our Dale Manukduk live for us tonight. Meanwhile, some teachers are refusing to teach at their Toronto high school. It has nothing to do with contract negotiations, but instead with safety. As staff at York Memorial Collegiate say tensions between students have been high, boiling over in a fight last week involving dozens of them. Ali Chiasson has more.
Things are getting so unruly at the old George Harvey Institute that 13 teachers walked off the job.
There's fights. There are a small group of students who are not attending classes and are wandering the halls and are causing disruptions, disrupting other classes, purposefully going into classes, refusing to move out of spaces so that education can continue. Teachers have refused to work, and that is not something they would normally do lightly. So they would have to feel they have solid evidence that they are not safe.
Science teacher Usha Kelly Maharaj is still showing up to class. She says she empathizes with her fellow staff members, several of whom said they were injured in a hallway brawl last Friday. But she also feels for the students acting out.
They feel very disenfranchised, so there's anger that's building and bubbling.
Their school burned down in 2019. Here's a timeline of what happened next. After the fire at York Memorial, they moved the student body to George Harvey. It didn't go well. The aging school building couldn't handle the influx of students. It felt crowded. 2 rival schools under one roof, it wasn't good. The board agreed to move the students to Scarlett Heights, a vacant school that had been shut down. But come this school year, the students moved back to George Harvey, even though the promised renovations were delayed. Scarlett Heights, which was a little further away, went back to being surplus land.
We wanted to bring York Memorial back into the community in which it belonged. So this is why this particular site was chosen for the consolidation of the 2 schools.
But as Kelly Maharaj points out,
you can't just mash us together and think that that would work, right? Especially when the facilities are not set up for that.
The auditorium is still under repair. The gymnasium only recently fully functional. The sewage system was overwhelmed and backed up in Maharaj's classroom. All this adds to the tension, and staff and students feel let down.
Not so easy to bring 2 school communities together. And if we need to do more, then we need to hear what else it is that we're missing, and we will listen.
This while police investigate last week's fight, and the TDSB finds 13 replacements for the teachers who walked off the job this week.
We're talking now about a couple of years of damage to be undone. That is what we're looking at.
The New York Memorial won't be rebuilt and reopened for another 4 years. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police are identifying the suspect wanted in Monday's school shooting at Woburn Collegiate Institute in Scarborough as a 17-year-old. Mustafa Kadam is wanted for second-degree murder and is believed to be armed and dangerous. Now, he is suspected in the murder of 18-year-old Jefferson Gourier. A 15-year-old was also shot. Gourier was a student at a nearby school. The shooting happened just moments after classes let out for the day. Because the suspect is under 18, police received judicial authorization to temporarily release his name and photo. The SIU has been called in to investigate after a man was shot by police in York Region this morning. Greg Ross has more.
A 44-year-old man is in hospital with life-threatening injuries after an altercation with York Regional Police here in Vaughan. Now, according to the SIU, just after 8 o'clock this morning, police were called in to investigate a suspicious vehicle. Now, it was parked in this parking lot here for this meat packaging plant in Vaughan on Hanlon Road near Pine Valley Drive. Now, the SIU says 2 York police officers responded to the scene and had an interaction with this man. You can see there are 2 cruisers that are parked there in the parking lot in front of a dark-colored van. Now, the SIU says eventually both officers fired their guns and the man suffered multiple gunshot wounds. I did talk to somebody who runs an auto repair shop next door. He says he heard those shots.
Around 8 o'clock, I heard banging, like here at my back door. I go like three banging like that. So I figured someone was at the back door. So later on, I realized that was 3 shots.
An employee who works here at the meat packaging plant told me that she saw a man sitting in that van this morning. It's hard to tell from here, but that van's actually parked across 2 parking spaces. She says she saw a man sitting in there and she doesn't believe that he is an employee here at the meat packaging plant. There were some others who told me that they saw the man sleeping in the van when police were called. York Regional Police say while this call was originally for a suspicious vehicle, they say that officers on scene later upgraded it to a weapons call. At this point, the SIU has not confirmed if that 44-year-old man who was shot by York Regional Police had any weapons on him at the time. Greg Ross, CBC News, Vaughan.
Well, it was probably sunny at some point where you were in the GTA today, but fog did roll into downtown Toronto this afternoon. You're looking at a time lapse of our harbor cam around 3 o'clock where you can see the changing skyline. All right, let's go to Colette Kennedy now with a first look at your forecast. And Colette, it was a beautiful sunny day for the most part, though I know in some areas there was some pretty dense fog.
Yeah, it was that kind of a situation with extremes today where you get away from the lakeshore and it was still blue sky this afternoon, but elsewhere, especially close to the lakeshore, that fog had rolled in and then, of course, kind of expanding as we go into these evening hours. So we do have some advisories that you need to be careful about on the roadways. I've been saying this, I know, for several days now, and just allow yourself some extra time if you do need to be out there. The daytime highs tell the story. Some cooler numbers here, Toronto and Oshawa, Peterborough, though, at 18 in London, and Windsor 19, and some of that heat. It was even warmer into northwestern Ontario than what it was closer to the lower Great Lakes, and that warmth will be coming our way. What's also coming our way, though, is this forecast where we get that fog that lingers into the morning hours and some of that low-level cloud, and then we see much of it burning off into the afternoon. So tomorrow, that day is going to be split once again. And in terms of the temperatures that we are looking at, overnight tonight, 7 degrees for the low, and tomorrow's high 15, and then those teens will be coming after that, those upper teens. I'll have more on that coming up, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. Pandemic delays and resources issues continue to plague Ontario's healthcare system. At the Hospital for Sick Children, thousands of kids are waiting for operations. For one Toronto family, the wait for their son to have surgery has lasted years. Ryan Patrick Jones has their story.
Georgie, let's make a house. Let's build Pepper's house.
3-year-old George Michelis has been waiting all his life for an operation. Shortly after he was born, he was diagnosed with a birth defect at Sick Kids.
We met with the doctors there, and they assessed him, and they said he was a candidate for surgery, and they would get back to us within 6 months to a year for his surgery date. Unfortunately, as we all know, the pandemic hit in March of 2020, and ever since then we've been kind of in a black hole.
George has hypospadias, which affects urination. While not life-threatening, without surgery, he could develop complications or reproductive issues over time. It wasn't until this week the family learned George will get his operation in January.
The truth is, as a family, we didn't push it earlier because we didn't know what the new norm was. We wanted to be patient and tolerant. We're not patient and tolerant anymore.
I think that it brings to light that our healthcare has changed and the healthcare in Canada has changed. I think people need to become aware because maybe it's happening to us today and it could happen to somebody else tomorrow.
698 children are currently in line for hypospadia surgery, but Sick Kids says it only has one surgeon who regularly performs the procedure.
The issue really is there's a huge volume of children that need surgery, and we just don't have enough resources to take care of all of them. This is a situation that's evolved over many, many years, and COVID was really probably the straw that broke the camel's back.
Dr. Kelly says the hospital's facing a shortage of surgeons, specialized staff, and operating room space.
Where we're able to take care of the emergencies and the urgent care at the top of the list, but those children sort of nearer the bottom of the list just don't rise up to get their surgery in a timely fashion.
There were 6,021 children waiting for surgery here at Sick Kids as of October 31st. The Ministry of Health says it's investing $300 million this year to help reduce backlogs across the province. That money will go towards ramping up surgeries, addressing long waits, and improving post-surgical care. Ryan Patrick Jones, CBC News, Toronto.
The Ontario Public Service Employees Union addressing the staffing crisis in our hospitals today. The union says there are ways to fix the problems.
We can solve this crisis by investing in public hospitals and giving hospital professions a voice at the table and a voice in the allocation of the funding. We can solve it by increasing the hospital professional staffing, not only doctors and nurses, but the full team of allied healthcare professionals.
OPSEU says hospitals are facing a severe labor shortage in all fields. The union is calling on the Ford government to take action to stem what it calls a mass exodus of professionals. They also want the government to repeal Bill 124, which caps wage increases at 1% a year for public service employees. And hundreds of positions at Toronto Public Health could be eliminated if the proposed budget is approved by the city's new council.
I think what the Board of Health will want to do at its meeting next week is check in on those numbers. Are there any hidden cuts or not so clear cuts that will impact the long-term ability of public health, one, to do its regular programming, and specifically to meet the demand of COVID, especially if it starts to trend upwards?
His proposed budget for 2023 is $368 million. That's a drop of about $2 million from last year. One of the largest proposed changes is in funding to the city's COVID-19 response. It includes $9.1 million less than the previous year and a loss of 209 positions. And many of those job cuts include staff who mobilize the mass vaccine rollout. While the proposed budget is smaller for next year, it also calls for increased spending to address the needs of seniors and children and expanding dental care. Welcome back. It was supposed to be a relaxing family vacation, but things got off to a rocky start at a car rental company in Mississauga. Elizabeth Schlarb has her own vehicle, but needed to rent a van to drive a group of family members out east. Now, the senior from Barrie finally tracked one down, but when she went to pick it up, she was denied. The company said she was too old. Angelina King has her story.
Okay, get in. Elizabeth Schlarb and her adult foster sons with special needs have a busy schedule that has Schlarb driving a lot. Taking them to activities, running errands, and driving across Ontario to visit family. Schlarb is 84 and very comfortable behind the wheel.
I don't have any speeding tickets. I don't have any accident tickets.
But when she went to pick up a minivan she booked to drive a large group to visit family out east, she was told she was too old to drive it.
I was offended. Don't judge people by their age.
The rental company, Green Motion, has a policy that bars drivers over 80.
I have never run across this problem before.
Graham Webb practices elder law and says Green Motion's rule could be a human rights violation unless the company can prove it can't get insurance for customers over 80. No major car rental company in Canada appears to set maximum age limits on drivers.
The Ontario Human Rights Code really prohibits discrimination in the provision of goods and services based on age.
Bill Van Gorder is with CARP, an advocacy group for older Canadians.
It's profiling to a large degree, just assuming by looking at somebody that they can't do something.
In a statement, Green Motion International said age restrictions are often in place because of insurance demands. It also said it allows franchise owners to change the age rule to ensure it meets local legislation. The owner of the airport location where Schlarb was denied didn't specifically address the age rule, but said the branch reviews and updates policy regularly and is always looking to make improvements. Schlarb says she wants Green Motion to know she did make it to see family in New Brunswick by splitting up the group and driving her own car instead.
I wish I could have gone back afterwards and said that I did drive the 1,300 kilometers all the way there and all the way back.
Still, she calls her would-be rental experience offensive.
I hope it'll never happen to anybody else.
Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Let's go back to Colette now with a look at your long-range forecast. And Colette, this fog will be lingering into tomorrow.
Yeah, it's been really stubborn. We keep seeing this pattern continuing, and I've talked a lot about reasons for it in terms of the water temperatures and the land temperature at this time of year and the longer nights and moisture that we have to work with. All these things contribute, but also the winds. When we have lighter winds and we don't get the mixing of the atmosphere, that too lends itself to allowing this fog to develop. So we're looking at that again, some of the clouds lingering into tomorrow morning. Then we'll get gradual clearing as we go into the afternoon. In most cases, we'll see the sun back out again. And then in terms of the temperatures, mid-teens for the GTA tomorrow. After that, we're going to see some high teens coming back our way. And speaking of warmth, you know, today Fort Frances for much of the day was a warm spot, not just in Ontario, but in Canada with a temperature over 21 degrees. So that's in the warm sector of this system. Colder air and, in fact, snowfall advisories for many parts of the prairie provinces. 20, in some cases locally 30 centimeters of snow behind this system. So for us, other than a bit of drizzle that comes sometimes with the fog, we stay dry, although more clouds will start to come in Friday. It's into Saturday, the system, or remnants of as it comes through, will bring in some rain showers. The timing right now looks like later Saturday, so think Saturday late afternoon for Windsor and southwestern Ontario, and then overnight more so for the GTA. That could change. It's still a few days out, but just kind of giving you a heads up that we'll have some mild temperatures and in many cases still some dry conditions other than that front passing. Tonight, a look at your temperatures, 6 and 7 degrees here. That's 6 for London. Around the GTA, they're similar to what they've been the last couple of nights, or actually this morning, but just a little milder, 7 degrees the overnight low there for Pearson. 15 tomorrow, once we break out of that fog. Friday, increasing cloudiness, a high of 18. Saturday, if we get above 20, a little bit above, actually would be a new record, so we'll see how those temperatures, how much they warm up as we get into the weekend, Kelda.
Thanks so much, Colette. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Maribel Tarouk has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. And we'll leave you now with another look at that thick blanket of fog that covered much of the city today. Have a great night, everyone.